Great Mother speaks.
I am Great Mother, Holy Spirit, Yin, Divine Mother, Cosmic.
Hello and welcome to your Aquarius Full Moon Great Mother Speaks reading. This full moon is in the nakshatra of Dhanista. It is a very happy-go-lucky energy, people that are born in it, and actually it's the fewest people of record who are born in this nakshatra than of any other. It is equidistance between Capricorn and Aquarius in the Jyotish astrology, which is what we use here on Great Mother Speaks. She calls it the soul astrology. This is the astrology that really does pace this life with the soul most accurately because it is cosmological. We do use Western astrology in terms of understanding our egoic relationship to the soul. So our emotional state is really important in terms of looking at our Western astrology. Here we deal with mama drama trauma, which is a condition in which the mother projects unhealed issues of herself onto her child, causing emotional and/or physical trauma. And so in order to heal mama drama trauma, we have to tap into our intuitive wisdom, which is the fundamental basis of lunar astrology when it is activated as a tool to be used for healing, which is why we use the Jyotish astrology and your Jyotish moon sign, which you can find in the calculator below. Of course, use whichever moon sign most resonates with you at this time. Detachment is all about an energy of sociability, and following up the new moon reading in Cancer, you may want to check on what your new moon wishes were. I have found with individuals who come for readings how incredible using the follow-up full moon reading within the context of what Great Mother was saying during the new moon gives a very enlightened perspective on how to work with the lunar energies, because with the personal readings, we actually look at your unique cosmic calculus, your moon sign. So even if your moon sign is Aquarius, not all of you have this full moon as your full moon at this particular time. Some of you will have it at other times during the year based on the degree of the moon in which you were born. For example, you may be born at 5 degrees Aquarius, and that's more new moon energy. Full moon energy is 15, 16 degrees, etc., etc. So I want to encourage you to be more familiar with your degrees of your moon sign, because the Lunar New Year for you and the midpoint of your year is going to vary quite a bit with these general readings, as well as configurations, aspects, and planetary placements in your birth chart. So for that, go to greatmotherspeaks.info for a personal reading. I want to let you know that because it is going to also change the nakshatra of your moon sign. And so this, generally speaking, at this time, the moon is in the nakshatra of Dhanista, but you may be in another nakshatra in which you were born. There are an average of 2.5 nakshatras per sign. So there's a toss-up there energetically, but we'll do our best here. This energy overall, generally for all of us speaking here, is a full moon energy of lightheartedness. It's a lightheartedness that is very communicative. It's very socially oriented, highly creative. It's honest. Aquarian energy is very honest, very direct, can be emotionally detached, which in many cases for mama drama trauma is a good thing, because our yellow brick road is a healing road of loving detachment from the drama, the trauma, and in some cases, the mama, if that is necessary. And so this kind of mental acuity comes from a sense of a capability to maneuver one's mental space that's made available through the alchemy of Aquarian energy. in this constellation. It is very learned, particularly through its social proclivities, through friends. It really loves to interact with people and create associations with individuals in order to gain its knowledge, in order to really enjoy life. That's an important part of gaining wisdom. And the knowledge is so important in order to be able to decode macro patterns, the macro patterns of life. They're very good architects. They're very good engineers, and they can look at the whole and break it down into detail. And this all seems to come about over a drink after work. They tend to learn quite well in study groups in school. Even their romantic life is centered around social engagement. And so if you're dating someone like this, or you are like this yourself, it may be difficult for you to understand the attachment that people have romantically in relationships that dictates a very singular one-on-one relationship, when in fact love for you is an augmented experience with others. So it's very intuitive at the same time with regard to the unique genius of others, and it likes to tap into that as well as the genius within oneself. So we're talking about the transition from Capricorn energy, which is all about that inner silence and diligent focus and manifesting, to this equidistance to Aquarian energy that's about outer service. And so bringing that inner wisdom, that inner genius, that macro vision into the world through the detailed analysis and connecting with others to manifest that outer service. And so coming through the eclipses and coming through all that we have been experiencing this year with the retrogrades, we now have Jupiter direct as of the 11th of this month. Yes! And so that is a very central theme of this full moon reading. Jupiter is direct again in the sign of Scorpio in the Vedic. So we're going to look at that in each sign as we look at the illumination that this Aquarius full moon in Detachment has for you. Hello, Cancer moon sign people. This is your full moon in follow-up to your new moon. So there's always a special relationship between the new moon sign that has just had its new moon and the full moon that follows. And so even though Jyotish astrology is the most astronomically correct, it is not exact. In other words, if it were, this would be a Capricorn full moon, as the opposing sign is typically the subsequent full moon to the new moon. For you, this is in Aquarius, the full moon that is occurring now. And this energy is 8th house energy for you. Okay, again, as opposed to what would be 7th house energy. So this is quite an intuitive leap to transform, to unconceal secrets that really perhaps precipitate the transformation that's occurring, and also opens up the reception of spiritual gifts, maybe even some materialization of spiritual gifts that are coming forward as a result of some contact that you may be making on an esoteric level to learned spiritual leaders, guides, ancestors at this particular time, awakening you to creating a new pathways moving forward, creating new approaches to life, as the eclipse season has just come through a very significant period and Jupiter has gone direct. There's a lot of potential here that's occurring, as we see with the Isis self-mothering full moon root chakra card. Now, Isis is the Egyptian goddess who is the mother of the pantheon, in fact. And so very strong maternal energy coming through for you, Cancer, which is not a surprise. And it's full moon energy, root chakra energy in the Vedic Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, which rules the root chakra. So again, this is very powerful full moon follow up to your new moon Cancer energy. You might want to check out those new moon wishes at this particular time, just to kind of see what is emerging with this root chakra coming through Isis, this eternal energy. Of course, Saturn for you is in your 6th lunar house, with K2 being in Sagittarius. So all of this is saying that where this full moon illumination is bringing up issues of ungroundedness, your soul is wanting to do work around grounding yourself in self-parenting and self-nurturing and self-compassion and self-care. This is very central to this full moon at this time, and it's being brought up through the energy of Kali, which is also root chakra energy, but it's first quarter moon energy, which is about facing the challenges to doing that for you at this particular time. There may be some fears around being able to love yourself or having the time, issues of worthiness around this at this particular time. And all of these are very ungrounding. And so what we want to do is look at Mercury and Venus, which are in your moon sign at this time. They're transiting your moon. And this is why you're probably feeling a little low in your vitality right now. You look good, you look fine, and you may, for all intents and purposes, feel fine, but the energy may not be there. You may be very socially popular at this time, and so that might be creating some anxiety because the vitality is not there, maybe. And of course, there may be a response of, wow, I feel bad. I cannot respond the way I would want to do and do for others at this particular time. And what Great Mother is saying is that the doing needs to be for you in order for you to fully take advantage of the potentials that are being created from all of these spiritual downloads that you're getting from this 8th house energy, Cancer moon sign. What's in your shadow position is Ishel, a self-creation. And so you don't realize that you're in a process of self-creation. You don't realize that what you may be receiving emotionally as a sense of anxiety as a result of not being able to do for others at this time, or receiving the intuitive message that this is not the season to do for others, but to do for you, and maybe their guilt, blame, and shame around that, and taking care of yourself and worthiness and all of that. You don't realize how important this is. Ishel is a waxing gibbous second chakra card. So this second chakra is about your desires. You probably don't realize that you do have a deep desire to do this. You know, that's why you're having all of this spiritual contact with your guides and your ancestors, is to support the desire that you have to do this and get out of the default routine of jumping to the needs of others. You're ruled by the moon, Great Mother energy. It's just, we all have our stuff, and this is some of your stuff, and it's really coming up with this Aquarius full moon, which is why the soul wants to work on self-mothering. And your shadow position is the second chakra. It's ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is in your 5th house. And so you have the support now fully of Jupiter to be creative, and you can handle this. You can maneuver this situation, Cancer, just like any great mother can just reorganize and multitask and do what you need to do to prioritize yourself. And there's a spiritual attitude you have about this. Take advantage of that. Use that spiritual attitude. Ishel is the Mayan goddess of procreation, of the moon, of rainbows, of all of those things that invigorate life. And so that kind of lack of vitality that you're feeling emotionally, and maybe a little distrust perhaps of what your intuitive downloads are, it may be happening because some things that you want to be materialized may be eluding you at this time. But what you truly desire is the internal manifestation of the confidence. And so there is a need to be a little self-centered at this time. It's not self-centered, it's self-focused, it's self-care, in order for you to be self-filled, not selfish in what you desire. That position is self-inquiry. The S in Aspire, the 6 suits of the Great Mother Speaks Oracle deck, spell aspire because we aspire to live in loving detachment from all of this gunk and junk so that we can live our divine lives of dearly loved children of the Great Mother, Father God, who are never judged, condemned, or left alone. We don't feel judged, condemned, or left alone because we practice self-non-judgment. We practice self-non-condemnation. We practice recognizing that our guides, angels, and ancestors count as company, as companions. We're never alone. We can talk to them. And that is what you're doing. You're just not translating that at this particular time, Cancer moon sign people, into self-mothering and into the guidance that you need to get what your true desire is, which is self-inquiry. The S in Aspire. This is balsamic moon download energy of Earth Father, encouragement of action. We see here in this scene, the Wizard of Oz, that the field hand, Zeke, or this is Hook, is visiting Dorothy's bedside, and he's saying, "Do you remember me? Do you remember your divinity? Do you remember your yellow brick road journey? Do you remember that you're on a healing journey that requires you to be self-loving, that requires you to trust in your divinity in order for you to sacrifice your MDT identity? Do you remember the actions, the conscious action that you have to take in following up to this spiritual awakening that you're having, to the great potentials that are available if you do remember?" So the practice of self-inquiry is to meet the judgment and the condemnation at the door and say, is it true that I'm not worthy? Is it true that I need to do for others in order for me to then be worthy of taking the self-care and the self-nurturing and the self-mothering time for myself? And Byron Katie, I always suggest her work, The Work, to do that, byronkatie.com. You can go there and get a Judge My Neighbor worksheet. And oftentimes with Mama Dramatama, we're talking about ourselves. Judging ourselves is a very powerful work. You can YouTube her and learn how to do that self-inquiry process, which is most helpful for us. Another simple self-inquiry is just, instead of being judgmental, I'm not worthy, be self-curious. Why do I feel I'm not worthy? What is that about? You have the capacity to do that kind of self-inquiry, Cancer, because you have all of this lunar energy that can be reallocated to that kind of productive usage. And if some of you are feeling a sense of humiliation, this is an example of how you can use that deep intuitive ability. If you're feeling a sense of humiliation because you feel so bad, you're not able to at this particular time because of low vitality, or you're just not able to invest the energy. This is what happens after these kinds of eclipse seasons. We have defaults that we just can no longer activate. It's just too phony. It's just too fake. It does not have the vitality. It doesn't have the life force in it anymore. But our minds are conflicted because we still want to activate that default. And that's what Earth Father energy does. It reminds us of the law, that the law says we are divine children of Great Mother, Father God. And so we align with that in order to heal the illusion that we are children of abandonment and abuse, that we should always be abandoned and abused, and then we feel like we're worthy. It's a very twisted perception that we have. And so it's a reprogramming that occurs. Self-inquiry will really help you with that. And what will also help you is in your position of assistance is Sekhmet. Sekhmet is the Egyptian goddess of rage. She is all about calling it out. What's supporting you at this time is calling out those things that are ideas, attitudes, behaviors, relationships that are always agreeing with that blame, shame, and guilt that keep you locked in that sense of not being able to fulfill your desire of more self-compassion, of more self-curiosity as opposed to self-judgment. And so calling out what does not support your intuition, which is your desire to awaken to more spiritual clarity, to receive the spiritual gifts that you have in order to really give to yourself and others. There's more to you that you haven't been able to get to, and that these distractions are no longer being given the vitality, the energy that they were given in the past. And you can, through sheer free will, reactivate them, but it's going to take double the energy to do that, as opposed to acquiescing to this full moon in your 8th house to transform that tendency into one of the potential that is available beneath the surface for you. And it's being erupted with this root chakra waxing gibbous moon card of Sekhmet, which is a revising of what really makes you feel good. In the past, again, it may have been that kind of twisted purview of, okay, I'm feeling abandoned and abused, but if I do this and if I do that to nurture others, well, then I won't feel so bad, and then they won't feel so bad. Twisted in the past, the default, and now it being more, this really makes me angry, having to always justify myself, having to always prove that I'm worthy of being loved. And I know this energy of rage is supporting me so that I can call out where this toxicity is in order for me to mother myself through it, mother myself through the release of it, in other words, the revision of this default position, which is what waxing gibbous moon energy is about. Root chakra, again, ruled by Saturn, which is in your 6th house. So hidden enemies, that rage may not be apparent to you, but it exists and will remain there as a hidden enemy until it is acknowledged as your support to a loving self-inquiry practice that allows for the self-nurturing that Great Mother is calling you to this Aquarius full moon. Your present state of ego-soul alignment is that you are open to this process. That's the good news, Cancer moon sign people. You're open to it. It's scary, like we see the lion jumping out of Oz's castle window when he hears he has to bring the witch's broom back to get his courage, but you're down for it. It's a heartbreaking. We have waning gibbous moon energy, which is all about living in the present. So in the present moment, you're staying with it. You're not self-abandoning. You're staying with the feeling of frustration, perhaps a little bit of rage. That's why you need the self-mothering. That's why your soul wants you to work on it. You're sticking with it. You're open to the process. This is wonderful, because the reason your soul wants to do the work, why position, is Moses. You are learning to live the law. The law of ego-soul alignment is the law that says, as above, so below. So as the ego experiences mama drama trauma, and it experiences the replication of mama drama trauma in our relationships at home, at work, in our communities, how we reverse that, and more importantly, how we reprogram ourselves, is by recognizing this first quarter moon gut chakra energy of Moses, which is facing the challenge to trust our gut. And if our gut is telling us that we lack the confidence to acknowledge our divinity, we own that And we mother ourselves in the ways that we need to develop more confidence. So in other words, we see Dorothy here being acknowledged by the mayor of Munchkinland as a great hero for killing the Wicked Witch when the farmhouse landed on her. But she's confused. She doesn't know why they're honoring her for killing someone. She feels very uncomfortable. That's exactly what is meant by not being comfortable with fears, not being comfortable with unworthiness, not being comfortable with the self-inquiry, and not self-abandoning. So you are open to staying with yourself through this process. And the reason why your soul wants to do the self-mothering process is to further support the alignment of your ego soul so that you learn even more how to recognize the value and the potential that you have for yourself and for others. This is what Dorothy had to realize in her Yellow Brick Road journey, is that she did have to kill the witch over and over again. Every time it reemerged, every time it reincarnated, she had to kill another witch. Why? Because we will always be triggered by mama drama trauma until we go home to peace. Click our heels 3 times, body, mind, and soul. We own our divinity. We own our health, happiness, and wholeness. And we own our journey with loving detachment. That's body, mind, and soul. So you are in that process. And how your soul wants to do this work is pulling back the curtain, the Moses card of illusion. This is the Maya card, rather, of illusion. Moses is why your soul wants to do the work, is to learn to live the law. And the how to learn to live the law in order to self-mother is Maya. The card of illusion is new moon, third eye energy. Toto pulls the curtain back to reveal Oz as just a man. Again, the truth about the fear, the truth about the rage, the truth about being open to facing this in order to mother yourself. Taking a beat before jumping up and going to that default, twisted sense of being, to unravel that shame, blame, and guilt, confusion, in order to align with this third eye wisdom of who you truly are as a divine child. Toto symbolizes intuition. He knew he was a divine child, and he knew that it was a farce that they had to prove their worthiness to have their wishes, but they didn't know that until they knew it. And so this is why your soul wants to do this self-mothering work, to walk out the care that you so readily give to others, to yourself, so you can actually experience that love for yourself. And your outcome in doing that, Cancer Moon sign people, is Baba Yaga, the wild woman. You will feel like a wild woman doing this. Many of you will feel totally out of your element and a little, again, humiliated from the slightest indication that you are not being the great maternal energy that you need to be for others. Again, reallocate that sense of duty to yourself. You have the capacity to do that. And in a way that creates the loving detachment that you need to accept where people are. It's okay for people to be upset. It's okay for people to still expect you to care for them before you care for yourself. And it is very effective, this being a throat chakra new moon card, for you to begin anew communicating to people in this way. I realized in the past, I would get up in the morning and the first thing I would do would take care of your meal. But what I need to do now is, for the first 15 minutes I'm awake, is just have time for myself. Do you mind putting your own oatmeal in the microwave? I really need you to do that because I need this time to myself. Just as simple as that. Simple requests such as that to retrain people. Because Baba Yaga is the wild woman card that takes no mess and in the process is able to bring people through great growth potentials, such as the one that you're undergoing. We see here that it says haunted forests. Witch's Castle, 1 mile. I'd turn back if I were you. So it might be very scary to you, and it might be very scary to others to meet this post-eclipse, post-Jupiter retrograde Cancer moon sign, moving forward into a more self-mothering, empowered energy so that you can activate all that you have learned through your spiritual teachers, your gurus, your guides, and your ancestors in this retrograde eclipse season that we've just come out of. So it's all about integrating what we're learning, moving forward, walking out in reality what we've learned internally. And so you have a very deep internal space. Great Mother has just given you a word about how to bring that out into your life and ways in which you are supported in doing so. Thanks so much for watching, sharing, and liking. But above all, and most of all, remember, Great Mother loves you, and I do too.
Great Mother speaks.
I am Great Mother, Holy Spirit, Yin, Divine Mother, Cosmic Moon, Deep Space, the Moon, Dark Matter, the Void, the Black Hole, Atar, Isis, Diana, Mami Ishtar, Kali, Mammy, and Mother Mary.
Great Mother speaks to us in raw, realistic, and righteousness. Great Mother speaks to those of us who are most alienated from her unconditional love due to our birth mother experience. Here, welcome to Great Mother speaks to us in raw, realistic, and righteousness. Great Mother speaks to those of us who are most alienated from her unconditional love due to our birth mother experience. Here, welcome to